Welcome everybody. We are here for One Piece chapter 1162, the God Valley Battle Royale. And that is a very apt description of this chapter. The God Valley flashback has been incredible in its insight, in its action, and just the massive story implications that it has. So I myself personally have been very satisfied, and it's living up to the hype, and it just seems to be continuing to build. I do truly think that Oda is in his bag right now, and I honestly can't wait to see where it continues to go and how the incident actually concludes. Because it's like we have the narrated version from Sengoku all the way back when, and we're already filling in pieces that obviously we didn't have before, but I just have no idea exactly how this is going to end and how we actually get a conclusion for Rocks and all of the people that are on the island. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in, and the chapter opens up and we have some people yelling that Rocks and St. Garling are locked in combat right now in the northwest. And we get this, one of One Piece's little maps of the island of God Valley. And in the northeastern or northwestern region, we get to see that it's Rocks versus Garling. And then in the center region, where Shaki was being held last chapter, we get to see that the Roger pirates are currently there still. And the rest of the Rocks pirates and the Navy are coming from the south, and the rest of the Roger pirates are coming from the north. So it's just good to get our bearings here about where kind of everyone is locked in combat at the moment. And basically, Roger tells Rayleigh to just keep going, let me handle this one. Like, we have Rocks is behind us, the Navy is also ahead. So, Rayleigh, you take care of Shaki, and I'm going to handle, what's going on here. And I like this moment because it is showing Roger as a captain. We've seen him be a bit goofy. We've seen him, chase after Shaki and be a little bit, not looking as magnanimous as he has in the past. But it's good to see him getting serious, taking command, issuing orders for the betterment of his crew. And Rayleigh is just taking Shaki out throughout all of this madness. It looks like some of his own crewmates that we don't really have names to are, helping clear a path for him to run through with Shaki in his arms. And we see some of them that are most likely from the Rocks pirates, from that fleet. They're saying like, oh, take out Rayleigh and we're going to steal Shaki from him. And we have actually, surprisingly, Shiki pop in and, just kick the person in the head, saying like, don't even dream of it, get rough. And like, basically, if you attack Rayleigh, you could harm Shaki potentially. And, we're not going to do that. So let's just switch targets to taking everything besides Shaki. So all of the treasure is what they're going after. We get to see Whitebeard still clashing with all of these people. Ganzui is there. And we have a moment between Rayleigh and Shaki where he is going to profess to her, most likely, that his feelings that he has for her, because he's like, hey, I have something I need to say. And she just cuts him off and says, don't say it, I already know. So, clearly from the actions of what has just transpired to save her, this was by far much more of a proclamation for Rayleigh's feelings for her than if he were to just, say it to her. Because sometimes it's like words just don't carry, they don't carry the weight that you want them to, and actions don't lie. It's what actually shows true intention, and you can't really fake those. So she already knows, she's aware. And we cut to the primary prize treasury, and in there, this is where we get to see Ivankov and Kuma, and they have now found the pawpaw fruit and the azure dragon fruit. And this is, something that we saw during the Kuma flashback. They're both about to eat them, but that's where Big Mom comes busting in through the wall and steals the fish fruit from Ivankov and goes to take the pawpaw fruit from Kuma as well, but he just hurries up and, just downs it. And, Big Mom's pretty angry about that situation, but, she still got to walk away with the dragon, mythical Zoan. So, it's still a win, but we get some more continued action of just the chaos unfolding all over the island, all of the different forces clashing against each other. And then we have a Marine come over the Denden Mushi and say like, hey, we need orders, sir. And we know that this is going towards Garp, and it gives kind of like a perspective change from the narrator. And it's showing like, hey, this is what this incident looks like from the Navy's perspective. And this is actually where we have Garp contacting Sengoku, and he is like, did you know this was going on? And this is like, the word this is highlighted, meaning did you know the absolute atrocity that was unfolding at these like little field trips that the Tenryubito are going on? And Sengoku here he basically is like, well, there was one man who reported some rumors, but then vanished from the Navy ranks after that. And of course, if there ever was a whistleblower for a situation like this, they're going to get snuffed out like that. So that's not very surprising. But even for someone of Sengoku's level here, he's still only had rumors to operate off of. That's how little information about this hunting tournament that they go on. There's just that little information that goes to the Navy specifically, even for Sengoku, and clearly here for Garp as well, because he's in absolute disbelief at the situation of what has occurred on the island, because he's seeing all of these civilians' bodies just strewn about the island, just being massacred. And he's basically like, well, if I ain't awake and dreaming, so if I'm not just like daydreaming right now, then it's all real. This whole situation is real. Which is just, because I know there seems to have been people that have thought, because of the way God Valley has transpired, that somehow Garp is aiding the Celestial Dragons and their pursuits of these atrocities. And I've just never gotten that from Oda. Everything that he has presented us when it comes to Garp and his motivations and what his beliefs are around the government aspect has always been very clear that he is absolutely against it, and he sees it as bureaucratic and just leads to very slimy and deplorable behavior. And up until this point, the only reason he even came to God Valley was specifically for Roger. So now he is truly seeing, he knew of the field trips, but even like Sengoku, there's just rumors to go off of, and it sounds like it was literally rumors from like one dude. So didn't really have much to operate off of here. But we cut away from Garp's perspective, and we get from Rock's perspective. And he's saying like, are they immortal or something? We see an explosion, and we get to see Eris say like, put me down, like let me down, Zebek. But then we get a panel of Zebek running. He's got Eris strewn over his shoulder. She is holding Teach, and Rox is running, and we have Garling, and the other female god knight with the dark hair is chasing. But then we also get to see 4 figures silhouetted in black, and they have the pitchforks, or the trident, like devil tridents, the wings, and the horns, that just like we've seen from Dory and Brogy on Elbaf currently after Emu used Dami Reversi. So clearly that power has been utilized here on God Valley, because Zebek is basically like everyone who got chased down, so who they were hunting down, got transformed like that. And he's thinking to himself, is that someone's power? But then we actually get to find out that his dad from the Davy clan is one of them who has been transformed, and so is his literal grandma. And he's like, what happened to you guys? But obviously we know that is a part of Emu's abilities. We have no idea what their abilities actually encapsulate in its entirety, but we have seen the ability to essentially turn people into demons that will fight and obey their command. So it seems to me that they've done the same thing with members of the Davy clan here, and they are now trying to chase down Rox. But this is where we get to see Garling acknowledge he has a massive literal gash out of his entire head that, of course, for any normal person would be a lethal wound. But we know with the God Knights and the Gorosei, they have the like supreme regenerative abilities that seem to be granted somehow from Emu as well. And that's just where it's like Emu's power set encompasses just like this massive list of crazy abilities that we just don't understand what it actually is and where their powers come from. So, I mean, there's just so much that we need to learn about Emu, but, you know, that's for another day, because Garling talks about the fact that the wounds that Rox has inflicted to him will no longer, they do take longer to regenerate. And we know that when it comes to the God Knights and their regenerative abilities, there is a specific way that we have yet to be privy to, but there is a specific way that if you utilize your Conqueror's Haki in your attack with your attacks, that you can actually slow the regenerative process for these for the God Knights, because we see the same thing happen for Saint Summers in Elbaf when after Gaban just diced him up with his axes, and it takes him just a significantly longer time to, you know, regenerate. So there's something at play here when it comes to the utilization of Conqueror's Haki, because it's the same thing Gaban tells Luffy and Zoro prior to this flashback. And we still didn't get like the full information on it, so obviously we're seeing more unfold and getting more info on it. But honestly, I don't really have that many great ideas of what specifically is being utilized with the Conqueror's Haki. So let me know down below like what you guys are thinking. If there's been something obvious that I'm just kind of like overlooking here. But, you know, just let me know down below. I'd love to engage in a conversation with you guys just to, you know, kind of theory craft and see what we're thinking. Because obviously it's going to play a major role when it comes to our crew in Elbaf, because we have 3 different God Knights that we have to try to take down, including Emu themselves in Gunko. So if we want to succeed on Elbaf, we need to get answers, and maybe this flashback is going to help shed some light on the inner workings of the regenerative abilities of the God Knights or whoever Emu grants powers to. But the female God Knight with Garling says that they know now that Zebek is of the Davy clan, and the Great One, Emu, will be delighted if they can take him out. And Garling's like, yeah, the game's ruined, but like this is actually a stroke of luck here. But we continue with Eris saying like, let me down, Zebek. Do you really think you can hold them off when you're fighting one-handed? Like you're intentionally handicapping yourself. And these opponents are not ones that you can defend against or beat while actively handicapping yourself. And Zebek is basically like, listen, anyone, he's giving like his reasons for why he's trying to get her out of there, because he's like, anyone who has the name of the Davy clan will be put through an agony that basically makes everything else, like makes hell look like a lukewarm bath. Like it's that bad. And she immediately is just like, I know that. Like she's like, I'm part of the Davy clan too, because obviously through marriage, through Rox, and coming here to the island of God Valley, she began to integrate into the clan, and they all seem to like take care of each other. And like she's like, they welcomed me among them, even though that she is a pirate, and she understands the fate of the clan. So she wants to be let down, and she like literally jumps out of his arms. And she's like, and this just shows off, you know, part of her personalities, because she's like, well, if I was the kind of helpless woman who would only cling to you and couldn't protect a single child, you wouldn't have fallen for me in the first place. And that's a great point. Obviously, that was a facet of her personality that Rox most likely deeply enjoyed and came to love about her. So, I mean, she's showing it off right here. She's not just going to idly sit by, cling to him for help to try to survive, and actively inhibit his ability to be able to fight off their opponents. So, and she even goes even further to show off her own resolve in this situation, because she's like, if it looks like they're going to catch me, she's like, I will basically kill Teach and end my own life, which is just an absolutely insane level of resolve on not being captured to be subject to the whims of the government. Because I myself, like, am married and I have a son, and that type of decision would just be so agonizingly difficult that the fact that she can just say it with such certainty and resolve, I mean, I just have to give her some serious respect and some serious props, because she's just like, hey, like, let's find a way, each of us, to survive, and we will meet again on Lelucia. And this actually gets Zebek to let her go, because I think he knows innately, he knows that she is right in this situation. This is not a typical situation on God Valley. It's an absolute chaos situation that needs to be handled with the utmost seriousness. And so she runs off, and Garling's all pumped up because he finally basically got rid of his handicap. And that's where we have Rox just do a massive slashing attack that basically cuts through a huge portion of the island. And he's like, come and do your worst, you monsters. So he wants all the smoke with these guys. He's got no problem with it. We get to see a little panel of little Teach looking on at what his father has like begun to do. It actually looks like Rox may have even, with that slash, like created a massive ravine or like trench to try to prevent pursuers of Eris and Teach, which would be very cool. Just a little, trying to add a little bit of protection to his wife and his child. But then we cut back to the primary prize treasury, and we have Big Mom, and she has the fish fruit, which is, we know, the one that Kaido, that is the mythical zone for the dragon fruit. And this is where she says that she will give this one to Katakuri. And it'll be a major power up for her future pirate crew. And before we continue, I just have to say that my boy Katakuri got robbed. Okay, he got robbed. He was destined for top tier status, because I am a huge Katakuri fan, and he was able to make the mochi devil fruit look incredible. And I think most people would agree that the mochi devil fruit isn't even in like the top 20 best devil fruits in the series. And he was still able to make it look extremely powerful with his skills and his abilities. So just imagining Katakuri with the fish fruit for the model dragon, we got robbed. Okay, Katakuri fans, we got robbed. The what if scenario on this one is amazing. Katakuri would have been like the main character of the series. So Oda had to cut it off because we have Kaido swoop in with his club, smack Big Mom across the face, and chomp up the devil fruit right in front of her. And he's just got a huge grin on. I think he intrinsically knew, even if they had maybe some sort of tentative agreement, that if she retrieved the devil fruits, that he would potentially be able to get one. Even if Big Mom did agree to that tentatively, I don't think had any intention of ever actually following through. And it's like Kaido basically knew that, and he did the pirate thing, and he stole it from her, who stole it from Ivankov. So, I mean, what goes around comes around, I suppose. She freaks out. There's an explosion, even hockey blasts going off. So, obviously, her plan to supercharge her son for her future uses did not go as planned. But then we get to see a side-by-side panel of Dragon running with Shanks and Eris running with Teach. And basically they're both like, hey, I'm not going to let you die, to both of them. And they continue on. We cut then now to the secondary prize treasury, which is behind the like game stage that we saw at the very beginning when they were like doing all the announcements and the stuff for the prizes. And we have the Roger Pirates, Gaban, leading this group, finding the just trove of treasure. They're obviously pumped. Pirates love treasure. And we even have Ganzui try to attack Gaban, but he just like casually blocks it with his axe. I mean, I don't think that dude is anywhere near Scopper's level. So he just needs to kind of like step back, get out of here. But we have the Marines then just saying how like they gotta not let the pirates leave the island. And this is actually where we have some internal contemplation for Garp. And this clearly, I think, was probably one of the biggest factors for Garp kind of probably pushing to change the Marines from the inside. it may have been actually after God Valley and not before. And this was kind of like the experience that opened his eyes to bringing in a new generation of Marines that could potentially change the organization as a whole from the inside. Because he's like, well, what is justice on an island where everything has gone crazy? Basically, everything's upside down. Nothing makes any sense. So what is justice in this situation? Because there was clearly no justice involved to the civilians. The Marines that were present actually assisted with this whole game. They were all complicit in this scenario, and that's why Dragon fought against it, because he just couldn't bear that weight just by following orders. So we get a terrible scene then of some of these people who have survived so far. They seem to be like on the shoreline, and they're like, yeah, it's the world government's Navy, like, please rescue us. They're so hopeful that they can get out of this situation, and they just get blown up by a cannon from this ship. And basically it's just, well, God Valley is an unaffiliated country with the world government. So therefore, like, you're not humans. You don't exist to us. So we can proceed to do whatever we want to you. And there's nothing, quite frankly, that you can do about it. And it's just more, Oda is just beating us over the head with a stick of the government is terrible. They need to be snuffed out, and there needs to be a major change in, like, from the top down. And this is where we get to see Saturn. He appears to just be like sitting up on like one of the rock peaks on God Valley. And we actually have Emu communicate to him and ask, like, Saturn, is Rox dead? And Saturn's like, well, like, I can't say. This whole situation is unexpected. And this is where he says something super interesting, but I just can't quite come up with anything as of yet. So I'd love to hear from you guys. But this is where he says, like, if anything, there is a danger that all of this destruction might bring about the birth of something entirely new. And Emu immediately just says that must not happen. And what does that mean? Like, genuinely, I don't understand what that means. What will be birthed anew if all of this destruction continues to go forth? I can't really honestly even think of anything, but it's something that clearly Emu does not want to occur. So please let me know what you guys think down below, what this could potentially be. I don't know if it has to do with like a certain devil fruit or something specifically on the island that would, be birthed. Like, I genuinely don't know, but I'm extremely curious about what they're talking about, and hopefully we'll get some more answers on it, continuing on this flashback. But this is actually where we get to see a silhouette of a dragon flying in the air, and of course we know that to be Kaido, who just recently ate that devil fruit and is clearly testing out his new abilities. And then we get to see our just the MVP. We get to see Kuma. He is now utilizing the abilities of the pawpaw fruit to send all of these, civilians off the island wherever they want to go. So he's just saving people continuously. And it's such a cute and wholesome moment, but then we get to see black lightning just erupt all over the entire island, very reminiscent of Egghead. And we obviously know what that means because we have Garp, Zebek, and Roger all instantly react to this presence that has come. We get to see a silhouette. We know it's Saturn having transformed into his like demon form. I can't for some reason remember the name, is like Yuki maybe. And basically then we have some of the Roger pirates talking to Roger himself, and they're like, "Hey, it's the Rocks crew, Captain." And even Roger's like, "No, we've got bigger fish to fry," because obviously he just felt the presence that has arrived on the island, and he knows that those squabbles with them is not going to be the major issue. And this is where we cut back to seeing Rocks, and he just looks like an absolute boss. He's all shadowed out, his sword stuck in the ground. There's just bodies strewn about. And this is where we actually get to see Garling, who is just on his back, laid out, defeated by Rocks. So Rocks is like, "You dare use my family against me," clearly for his dad and his grandmother. And he's basically like, "Well, this is going to be the end. Like, I will fight to kill. Like, in this situation, if my family members and my clan were going to be snuffed out anyways, and myself included, like, I am going to fight to kill because it's that serious of a situation." And clearly, Garling just couldn't handle the smoke against a real top tier. And that's just something when it comes to the God Knights. I know that they are powerful. They usually have very strong abilities. And obviously their regeneration makes them basically unbeatable to a very large percentage of the One Piece world. It was kind of similar to pre-time skip. If someone had a Logia before hockey was really like delved into, they almost had no counter whatsoever to deal with a Logia, so they were basically just unbeatable. And that's kind of how the God Knights are when it comes to the New World, is that now it's not just like where Logias required armament hockey to be able to actually interact with their physical form. The God Knights, you need Conqueror's Haki. And not only do you need Conqueror's Haki, you need to utilize it in a specific way that we still don't even know what exactly that means. So the percentage of people that can actually use Conqueror's Haki in their attacks, because we even know people who have Conqueror's Haki, but they've never used it in the advanced way where they coat their attacks in it. So it's like, we're talking about like such a small subset of this massive planet. So that makes the God Knights a very, it makes them a force to be reckoned with. But when it comes to actually competing against the top tiers that do have Conqueror's Haki, advanced Conqueror's Haki, clearly they just can't stand up against them. And that's something that I've believed to be true. I don't consider them to be like top tier fighters, but you guys can let me know what you think down below when it comes to like the God Knights and where you think they stack up. But I have them probably somewhere, I don't know, in the vicinity of like a Yonko commander level when it comes to their actual combat. Obviously with the regenerative abilities, that makes them a tricky opponent, but when it comes to actual combat, they seem to be, somewhere around there. I'm sure it varies amongst their own ranks as well. But this is where we have one of the kind of my favorite interactions of the whole chapter. We get to see Rocks, Whitebeard, and Kaido all in the same page. But first, it's, Rocks, and he's talking to Whitebeard, who has now shown up, and he's like, "Hey, there's nothing in it for you. Like, you coming to help me right now, there's no reward at the end of this. So you sure you want to help?" And Whitebeard is like, "Don't worry about it. Like, I've been drinking on your tab this whole time," which is just like a funny way to recognize that Whitebeard genuinely viewed Rocks maybe not as the man that he wanted to follow, but he respects Rocks as a pirate. and seems to have some sort of fealty or loyalty to him because he is willing to stand with him in this moment right now. And then we have Kaido in dragon form, like, hey, you two, like, check it out. You know, like his classic laugh. He's having a grand old time, and he's like, I finally got my own power, and I want to put it to the test so I can test out my new strength. And Rox is like, hey, good for you. I can tell you're having the most fun out of anyone right now. He's laughing. And Whitebeard's like, you know, that's all well and good, but can I ask you what in the world is that? And that's where we cut and see, well, Saint Saturn, who transformed into his demon form, but then out of Saint Saturn's head, we have the silhouette of Emu arising from that form. And we get to see Garp, Roger, and Rox, and Garp is like, now I know I'm dreaming. Like, what is this island? Like, clearly he has come here, and his whole perception on how he viewed the world and the organization he works for, and probably most of his principles and how he thought the world worked has just been now completely flipped upside down. And this is where we actually have Roger, which I absolutely love about his character, and it's so similar to Luffy. He's like, what grand days of adventure we live in. I still have so much to learn. He is truly someone who pursues his curiosities and loves to chase adventure. And that is something that Luffy has in absolute spades, is that adventure is always calling, and he is always like the first one to sign up for it and jump for it. So I love seeing the parallels there, but Rogers is even a little bit different because he's like, I have so much to learn. He is seeking to learn from his adventures, where Luffy wants to more so just like experience the adventures on his journey. And then we have Rox finishing it up saying, what is that you say? If I had to call it anything, that represents the world. And we get to see a panel of like blob emu. Wonder if we're actually going to get to see an unsilhouetted panel of emu, maybe eventually. But this is where the chapter ends. Obviously, Rox, Zebek is the only one of this group, maybe the only one of everybody in the world outside of the Gorosei and maybe some of the God Knights that has actually seen Emu in person. We saw him obviously infiltrate Pangaea Castle and get into the room of the flower room. So he knows exactly who this is, and that's why he's saying it represents the world, because this is the person, thing, sitting at the top of the food chain for this entire world. So we might as well just like strap that title onto this being, because that's essentially what is happening right now. So this is just an absolutely insane chapter. Insane. Every chapter is like, it's building. So what we're actually getting in the chapter has been bigger and bigger. So it's been more enjoyable, but then it's also setting up somehow still going higher. We're just stacking it higher, and it's building like a crescendo of like an orchestra. And I am just really loving it. I'm locked in. I'd love to know what you guys think so far about the God Valley flashback. What do you think the matchups are going to be? I'm confused. Is it literally going to be Kaido, Zebek, Whitebeard, Garp, and Roger versus Emu? But like from what we heard from Sengoku, that Garp doesn't like talking about it because this is where he had to team up with Roger against Rox. But like, it doesn't seem like Garp and Roger would necessarily want to fight for Emu by any stretch of the imagination. So I just have no idea what's going to happen. I kind of was floating around with the idea of potentially Roger and Garp being like Dami reversied, so they would be fighting for Emu against the three, Zebek, Whitebeard, and Kaido. But I don't really know how I feel about that. Honestly, I would just love to know anybody's input, what they kind of think going forward, what the matchups are going to look like. But regardless, I'm going to cut it off here because I could probably yap about this chapter all night, but I will not do so for your sake and my own. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I greatly appreciate you. If you've made it here, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep pumping out these deep dives, and I have some more like video topics that I'm planning on starting to expand. So I'm going to start filling out the library with a bunch of different stuff. So, please feel free to, join me on my journey. I've been loving creating content and making videos, and I'm super excited for the future of this channel, and obviously super excited for the future of One Piece. So I hope you guys are having a great day or night wherever you are, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.